Jon Vest is the Extension Agent for Floyd County with the Virginia Cooperative Extension. His expertise helps novice and experienced farmers produce quality livestock and crops throughout our region. Jon has offered to share his experiences with our audience and provide them with the knowledge to keep agriculture strong. This is the Ag Show with Jon Vest.
Welcome back, viewers. Once again, Jon Vest with the Ag Show. Wanted to bring to our viewers an opportunity to identify some invasives that we've got in Floyd County. It's this time of year, particularly in the spring of the year, where everything's taking off in a flourish of growth. And there's some invasive species that certainly stand out this time of year and are pretty good identifiers that enable us to certainly pick them out. I wanted to point out two plants that we have right here. The first one here to the left is our poison hemlock. And poison hemlock this time of year kind of comes up, has that very fern appearance in its leaf, almost a fern looking leaf. It looks like a soft material in which to touch. And our concern with this particular plant is that it is poisonous. This is the poison hemlock that you've possibly read about or learned in school years ago, how the women used to potentially get rid of their men by brewing a little poison hemlock in their tea. But certainly an easily identifiable poisonous plant that we would like to make sure the children would avoid, and even pets, animals that you might have along with you enjoying your outing. There are some things to look for when it comes to poisonous plants, that many characteristics they somewhat share. And that's what I wanted to point out here. All of this poison hemlock behind me has not quite flowered out yet. It hasn't started to flower just yet. And many of us are familiar with Queen Anne's lace. It has that nice white umbel-shaped flower up on top. That is the exact or very similar flower that poison hemlock will get once it reaches its flower development and has had another, 20, 25 days to really take off and push in its growth. These plants will be flowering as well. But in terms of a poisonous plant and some things I'd like you to look at or pay attention to, particularly with hemlock or poison hemlock, if you can see on the stems, here's a stem here and the stem right here. When you see that purpling moving up and down on that light green stem, when I see that type of appearance on a plant that just looks out of place, that's what I would really like you to certainly make sure the kids avoid in their activity. It's something that you would want to avoid if you're out and want to cut it down or look to have it removed. We typically like to spray this plant to make sure that we're able to get not just the top kill necessary, but down into its roots. It has an extensive rhizomaceous base. Its roots are growing underground and giving rise to clumps like what you see behind me. And with all that developing root growth underneath, it's oftentimes the best way to deal with this plant, rather than repetitive mowing or trying to tackle it from a mechanical perspective, is to actually get in there and look at an herbicide treatment that will kill it all the way down to its root system. That being said, contact the Extension office or myself or your ag agent in your home county, and they can advise you on the different products necessary to take care of this particular plant. Now, the second one that I'm really quite concerned with, or more concerned with, is this right here in front of me. This plant here in front of me is not, it's actually what I consider big brother. If we had to think of little brother, big brother, and then there's a daddy, when it comes to giant hogweed. This is the one in between, and this is called cow parsnip. And once again, cow parsnip is kind of within the family that it's still a poisonous plant. And if you were to pull back or look as this plant was able to develop, it's nowhere near its mature height and size right now. But we can see the purpling starting to start on the stem. We can see it's covered in little white hairs up and down the stem. Almost gives it a right pretty appearance. And folks could mistakenly think that this would be something that they would want to use or decorate with or something along those lines. This is absolutely a plant that we would like you to avoid, or certainly look at contacting either the extension office if you want to get rid of it, so that we can suggest the proper method to remove it as well. We're looking at a product once again that would get in and stop it at its root system, because if we could walk behind me, you'd actually see little starts of it having spread through here. I've actually got some larger plants starting amongst the poison hemlock behind me. Now, the interesting thing about cow parsnip, like I said, this is a juvenile plant right here in front of me. When it's at full size, it's going to be over my head. The leaves here, while they are divided, almost, they look like they've got, fingers or a hand type division and stuff on there. They're fairly deep lobed. They look like the plant that we're absolutely concerned with, called giant hogweed. This, like I said, is really the big brother, or the in-between child. This plant here shares some of Daddy's concerns, and that is that this plant, the sap, should you get it on your skin, say you're pulling the canoes or the kayaks up to enjoy a picnic on the bank or something like that, and you're not aware of what the pet may be encountering or rolling in, or the children are making their way up through, it certainly looks like something that's fun to cut down or whack with sticks. That sap, once on your skin, can experience a phytotoxic or ultraviolet response to where it will burn your skin. And even if you wash it off, if it's been exposed to sunlight for any length of time, that burn continues on your skin for an increased period of time, resulting in some fairly severe burns and real concerns if it's around the head and the face area. You need to recognize the stem. You need to recognize the purpling in the material that's going up and down the stem to indicate that it's in that kind of that poison family. Recognizing that it's not going to be an itch like a poison ivy, it's going to be a burn that in many cases can be severe around your eyes and nose if it was to get on your face and things. So, and something that it will continue burning for a while. That being said, and the reason I wanted to show this is we are on high alert for the larger, or the daddy version, called giant hogweed. And giant hogweed has a huge leaf. Now this leaf is the size, if I was to open it up and stuff, you can see it's the size of a dinner plate. Giant hogweed will be the size of dinner platters. And it really looks like something almost prehistoric. But it's going to have the exact, very, very, very similar stems. It's going to have much the same leaf shape, except even further division within the lobes of the leaf. And it's going to grow up just like this has the Queen Anne's lace flower. Cow parsnip has a larger Queen Anne's lace looking flower. And finally, giant hogweed, which we are most concerned with, has a huge Queen Anne's lace looking flower on top. By far, it is the most dangerous of the three. In the event that we have livestock or animals or humans get in a situation where they get the sap on their skin, even after washing or cleaning it off, if they've been exposed to sunlight first, that particular invasive plant can create second and third degree burns on your skin. The burning does not stop for up to about 24 hours. So it also creates a burned skin that does not heal for as many as several months to 6 months after you've experienced the infection point. So once again, it's not uncommon to have cow parsnip in Floyd County. We see it readily. What I would like to call our viewers' attention to is this guy's daddy, so the big brother even to it, and it will truly look like a prehistoric version of this plant right here, well above my head, and with leaves and things that really do match. So if you get an opportunity or want to know more about it, feel free to contact the Extension office. We'll send you, we have publications on identifying all three and their variations, so you can certainly identify them in your home landscape or on your farm and address the situation before they spread beyond control. Thank you, and have a wonderful trip on your next outing along the river. Well, hello viewership. We've made it back out, picked another roadside along in Floyd County, but wanted to demonstrate one of the additional basically invasive species that we've dealt with a number of years, or for a number of years. Many farmers and landowners alike are aware of multiflora rose and its potential to really be spread by birds and their potential along the fence lines, much like the autumn olive and stuff that we'll experience here in the future portion of this segment. But with regards to certainly multiflora rose, I want the viewers to understand that there are ideal times in which to address either the spray procedures necessary to control this plant, and or if you want to tackle it from a mechanical perspective and not using spray, the importance of really getting in there and staying on top of the mowing and the grubbing out of this particular plant. Once again, it's a rose that's very tolerant to certainly our weather conditions and everything that Floyd County has to offer. It is truly invasive in that it's spread by birds and wildlife. And I don't know if you can see the field out behind me here, but literally by wind and dispersal can start to overtake a field or start certainly putting itself together in some rather large patches. And so wanting to address it for the viewership as another one of our invasive species that right now would be an ideal time to take care or address it. Coming through the winter, the leaves have expanded out to what we consider their mature size or full size. It's starting into bloom. When we have 25% of the plant in bloom, we would love to spray once again with a product that is going to provide some systemic activity, make its way down through the plant, through its stem and into the root system, so that we can hopefully reduce it all the way down to the base. There's lots of products out there that will do just that and remove this broadleaf invasive species and leave your grass just fine behind. And would want to remind the viewers, contact your ag agent or have a conversation with your local extension agent, and they'll be more than happy to suggest either the chemical recommendations and or the process of repetitive mowing, grubbing, maybe taking the tops off the plants, allowing them to regrow, and then spraying them while they're small, or what it's going to take to hopefully get rid of the population that may be plaguing you on your piece of property. Okay, viewers, here we are driving down another section of highway, but I wanted to show you another prime example of an invasive here in Floyd County. This is bittersweet. This particular vine, as you can see, it's actually different from the poison ivy that we have behind me on the large tulip poplar behind me. This invasive vine provides a huge amount of tension and restriction as it starts to work its way up and around a tree. And what caught my attention just as driving past and wanting to demonstrate how invasive this can become in a short period of time, this is a relatively young shoot. It's loaded up in preparation of flower and developing what will be a seed head later on, not anytime soon, that is sometimes prized for decoration. You'll have folks actually travel to collect bittersweet for mantelpieces and areas above doorways and things later on in the season. But for the most part, spread by birds and other small animals, it can really transfer through your wood area or your wood lot, particularly those of us that are maybe looking at preserving certain areas of our property for a timber harvest one day. This is absolutely a plant that we'd like to avoid and eradicate from the property if at all possible. Once again, it's super strong in its ability to surround and literally choke off a tree as it's maneuvering itself upward into the tree's canopy. And if you look closely, if the camera can pan up in the young maple to the far right, we can actually see where this particular vine has dropped 2 trees over and is progressing right up into the canopy that right now is largely a bittersweet canopy as opposed to the young maple that it's growing in. So once again, just another invasive species that if you'd like assistance or information with regards on how to control and rid this on your property, contact your extension agent and we'll see about getting you the information necessary to deal and treat this situation on your wood lot. Hello viewers. I oftentimes get the question, particularly when we start addressing those viney species that are climbing the trees and things, what is poison ivy? What is Virginia creeper? And I thought while we had this literally behind us right now would be an opportune time to show the viewership exactly the difference between the two. What we have here is in very close proximity to each other. We have Virginia creeper and its five leaf system, what you can see right there. And I'm in no danger of being getting any poison ivy or sap or material on me to cause me to itch by messing with this particular vine right there. But then up above, let's see here, yes, we have intermingled literally right beside the Virginia creeper moving up this tree, we do have poison ivy doing the exact same thing. So if you can see right here by my hand, the poison ivy has a trifoliate leaf or 3 leaflets forming its very distinctive poison ivy pattern. Poison ivy does tend to be somewhat darker than your other vining species, but the leaves of 3, as far as remembering to leave that particular plant alone, is certainly one to remember. So with regards to Virginia creeper versus poison ivy, there is as close an example of the two that I can probably find you outdoors today to demonstrate with. As that poison ivy vine progresses in age, it'll become a very, very woody stem, heavy woody stem with the very distinct hairiness growing out from the vine itself. Once again, not to be confused with the Virginia creeper growing right here along with it. And lastly, just like I mentioned in our previous portion of the segment, here is the bittersweet jumping right in to really try to put the full whammy on this big old tulip poplar. So it's got both the Virginia creeper, the poison ivy, the bittersweet, a pretty good demonstration across all 3 of the vining species that we typically see on any Floyd County country road. Welcome neighbors and viewers. We're back with the Ag Show, and I wanted to bring to everyone's attention while we've been talking about the various invasive species that we have in Floyd County, I want to show firsthand what I consider to probably be the most serious threat to our open farmland. And what I'm holding here today for the camera is autumn olive. This is a plant, an invasive species, originally thought that would make an excellent conservation addition to protect streams and to provide protections around waterways. Little did we know in the end that it would garnish as much attention from an unwanted perspective as what it has become. But when you flip the underside, you can see how silver green the base of that foliage really is. So they're very, very easy to identify even now this time of year in the spring, prior to their berry set and their development or fruit set. You can absolutely look at the plant, particularly on a windy day, and watch it shift from green to silver relatively easy in the wind. Unfortunately, this plant right here, because of its potential for a fruit load or fruit development that is loved by birds, it's actually, I've got individuals that have made jelly and material from its fruit. But the fact of the matter is, it's so invasive that the birds and the other animals that do feed upon it, that light on the power lines, like what you see behind us, from the fences that we have, particularly perimeter sides of the fields or the farm fences around the overall farm property, just to the mailbox or anything that's sitting right above a flower bed. You will oftentimes be susceptible to having this plant eventually make its presence known. And once again, it's something that, because of its woody perennial nature, if allowed to progress, if allowed to get out of hand, what you can find is, particularly from a parent tree or one of the larger trees has become a heavy fruiter, you'll find that the distribution of young trees and young plants around it really does start to proliferate. And it'll take entire hollows or low areas and progress in those unkept areas on the farm. Maybe your steep banks, your other areas that maybe don't see the livestock presence in which to eat things back or keep things fed back on. As you can see behind me here, all this light material is from this one large autumn olive that was cut down. We have another one just behind the camera view. However, all this material that you see growing up in the background, just in the foreground of the telephone pole there, or excuse me, electrical pole there, certainly all that small material there is autumn olive. And the progression doesn't end right there. It actually, if it was to pan down, you can see where it progresses down this property here. It's actually certainly on both sides of the drive as it goes in. The reason why it's so important to address this plant while it's young is the sheer ability for it to start to gain in size and progress, and the larger it becomes, it's just a more prolific supplier for bird movement and the seed and its fruit off site, or off at least the immediate site. The other problem with this particular tree is it's so invasive from the standpoint of its growth habit and its progression. When we cut a stump or we cut a particularly large tree like what we have here, this is not usually enough to actually kill or even really deter it. It will sprout back in the same year and continue to progress, potentially putting new shoots up along the root system just below the soil line. So you'll get lots of small shoots or small trees started out from its base, as well as really any progression or young stems coming up and off of this stump will continue to grow just as well. So it's one of those things that we have to think about how we're going to tackle its control. Certainly if we want to look at the mechanical perspective first, as far as cutting or trying to remove as much of the material as we can initially, there are some tricks to the trade that would assist us in making sure that this stump doesn't grow back. One example is that we do have those herbicides that when this stump is freshly cut, and I'm not saying wait 24 hours, even 48 hours later, when the stump is freshly cut, we have those materials or those herbicides that can be sprayed and or painted, or even with a paint roller rolled on around the canopy, around the cut surface of the stump. And that herbicide will work its way back down into the main trunk itself and help to largely alleviate any type of developing shoots and stuff off the maternal or the parent plant there. It has the ability to travel back even then and work to control some of the resprouting that we would have off the root system. There are additional ways to tackle this. While ideally this has gotten too large, if we could catch this plant while it's relatively small and simply bush hog it to where we're creating a frilled edge or a damaged edge, it doesn't respond back very easily in that frilled edge. And likewise, we could treat at that time on a fresh cut or all over those fresh cuts to assure us that they don't get a regrowth or a resprout in that situation as well. Finally, we could tackle it from the perspective of there's this time of year is actually, while everything is in full leaf or full mature leaf, would require a large amount of herbicide or usually a large amount of product in which to try to control or kill the tree and take it down. So there is a period in late fall, early winter in which we can do what we call a dormant treatment or a dormant stem treatment to the plant itself. We'll spray just the lower 18 inches with no leaves on the tree at all or on the plant. We'll go around and we'll treat basically the stump itself and treat it to the ground level. And in many cases, we can help prevent the use of all that additional spray that would have to spray over the entire canopy. We can concentrate it at its base, and that tree just simply won't leaf out at that point. Once again, truly a very vigorous, strong plant. It's something that we oftentimes won't get away with a single treatment or a single effort in its control. It's something that we'll have to come back and revisit at best in order to keep the resprouting at bay or the potential for it to, regenerate off of the root system at some point. So once again, if you have questions about autumn olive and how best to control it, or if you want to talk about the different processes that may be involved in reduced herbicide usage or tackling it from a mechanical perspective first and trying to use up the plant's energy, and then treating at the point where the resurgence of growth can be controlled at that point, talk with your ag agent, have a conversation with your extension office. Cooperative Extension has entire publications on how to deal with this particular invasive species. And if you don't do anything other than acknowledging the big trees that are fruiting trees, do what you can to cut and or eradicate them from the property before you end up with a spread like what you have behind us. So just a reminder, viewers, you pay attention to the invasive species that we have in the county. If you see their progression and stuff, it's best to catch them while they're small or while there's few of them. It's a much easier job to address the few than it is the many.